Hi, my name is Sarah Boltman. I am Kelly's sister, and I just was here at her house listening to where things are at with the TSW community and all the developments that are happening, and I was just blown away by where this journey is. I've been walking with Kelly ever since I was born. She's my older sister, obviously, but from the very beginning of TSW, her journey 11 years ago, where you took the plunge and stopped all steroids, and this journey began for you. And I've been in this with you in a really powerful and profound way. And this moment is very pivotal, I believe, and really special. So right when Kelly was 10 months in, I came to her house and did a video of her in the middle of TSW, just hearing where she's at, what she was going through, what she was experiencing. So here we are 11 years later, and you've come so far. I mean, the TSW community has gone forward in many ways, but I would just love to hear from you. What do you see as the most exciting recent developments in the TSW progression?
Yeah, thank you, Sarah. And I'm already getting emotional. You can see we're both getting emotional because this is a lot, right? Mm-hmm. We've been through a lot. And I so appreciate the support of my family. I don't know how I would have made it without you. But it is amazing to walk with people through this whole journey because you see it from a little bit of a different lens. You're not in the day-to-day. You just get the highlight reel. Mm-hmm. And so as Sarah was here this week, we were just talking about that and thought, oh, it'd be really cool to revisit and video something again, just kind of as a milestone. Mm-hmm. And so some of the most exciting recent developments that are going on right as we speak, I would have to say the TSW pilot study that NIH has been running over this past year just got into preprint, which means it's not in a journal yet, but we wanted to make it public so FDA, other institutions, or researchers could take a look at it and at least get something started.
Hello, I'm Commander Ian Miles. I work for the National Institutes of Health, and I'd like to discuss our results from a recent pilot study in patients with topical steroid withdrawal. It's currently available as a preprint as we await the results of peer review.
The exciting piece of that study is that it really is a proof of concept. For a long time, the debate has been, this is just bad eczema that's not being treated. But we as patients realize, no, this is a different set of symptoms. This is so severe. This is not the original disease. This is something really, really wrong. Yeah. But because it's not in medical books and textbooks, doctors are not being taught about this. When patients come to them, they don't know what to say, they don't know how to respond, they're not familiar with this, they haven't heard about it, and so a lot of times, you know, their response can feel very dismissive to patients, and then it's causing a greater and greater divide between the patients and their healthcare providers, because us as patients, we already feel like, you know, we have been hurt, we don't know who to trust and what to trust anymore, and so it's just been such a challenge. So being able to have a study that's a proof of concept that says there's something distinct about this condition that is not eczema. A lot of us have those original eczema markers because that's where we began, but this is something different, and it's a physiological response to overexposure to steroids, and maybe not even to it's just exposure to steroids has caused this response, and it's giving us some direction for further research, which is really what it's going to take to understand how this is happening, when it's happening, how do we prevent it, is there a group of people who are more susceptible to this, do they have a certain threshold, all of these questions that we have, and then what are the targets that we can go after as far as treatments. And in this very small study, they identified something so quickly that our head researcher, Dr. Ian Miles, got us all on a Zoom call and talked about, hey, we have time to do another phase. Maybe we can try something that I think might be able to target this problem that I identified. And so we did. We tried. Awesome. And there's a supplement version, which is pretty cool for those who are a little bit averse to trying anything pharmaceutical or something chemical. But there's also metformin, which is the pharmaceutical almost equivalent. And they did find that berberine was more potent and effective in this certain mitochondrial dysfunction. So I tried berberine, and I started on 500 milligrams and went up to 1,500 milligrams a day, which I started experiencing some adverse effects. And so I went through to the end of the study just because I wanted to see if something's happening on a molecular level, we want to show that. And I was willing to kind of deal with some of those problems just because it's like, gosh, if we can find a real treatment that's going to help people, it's worth it.
Yeah.
And so, we're still working on dosage. I would have to say to our TSW community, be careful because we don't know. This is all experimental, but we really are making progress forward, and that is the whole point. And now when all of these other researchers and interest is like kind of ramping up, we can do more studies and really figure out, what's the next step.
So I'm just hearing what you're saying. I mean, this is huge. It sounds like you're saying it is the first time a scientific study is showing that TSW is not eczema. It is a response to steroid use.
Yes.
And doctors will now have this. It's now in print, and they can actually begin looking at this as a scientific study from a doctor to a doctor.
Yes, it's pre-print, so it's not in a journal, but it's online, and you can find it.
Okay.
And in fact, we are encouraging people to comment on there.
Okay,
You have to put your email in and sign up a little thing, and then they have to review your comments, so it doesn't post immediately. But the whole point is, if we have a lot of our community saying, this is important, please continue this work, that means journals who are looking at this will take it with more weight to say, this is a hot topic. We need to talk about this, even though it's and it is very controversial in the medical community. That's why everyone has been so kind of hesitant to really move forward on this, and why we're so grateful for doctors like Ian Miles who was willing to take this up and just look into it.
Yes.
Yes,
and I think it's amazing that he is in the NIH. He's not just a random doctor from some university. He's the NIH, a doctor in the NIH, which is amazing.
And what was crazy to me? He's saying, I'm showing it around to different, of my colleagues at NIH. We've never seen this before in science.
Oh, wow.
This is novel. Like what's happening, they've never seen it before. So this is so validating to us in the TSW community because it's like in your gut, you know it, but because we don't have the proof, it's like, how do you move this forward?
Right.
How do we actually get it in textbooks for dermatologists or general practitioners if we don't have the evidence? Our whole medical system is based on evidence.
Right.
So this is the linchpin. Wow. That is finally going to start changing that, and that's so exciting.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
that's amazing. Well, I think that's exciting, and it just reiterates to me, like, if you are someone who can get to that link and comment on it, do it. So will you put a link? I'm sure you have.
Sure, we can put a link in the chat.
Okay, link in the chat for people who want to do that. And it's interesting how every single person's participation matters. So, and that's what I saw in your journey. You just kept doing the next thing you could do that would help. And it just became more and more and more until now we're at this point 11 years later.
Yes.
This is amazing.
That's another thing I would love to say, the development that I've seen, and it kind of moves me, it makes me emotional. When people who are still in the midst of suffering, who are willing to step up and do something, we're seeing activity all over the world of people who are just, whatever they have a connection to or a link to, if they know someone who's in parliament, or they know a researcher, or they talk to their doctor, or they're making up a petition, they're running a fundraiser. There's something that all of us can do to move this forward. And I love seeing, people sharing their stories on TikTok, on Instagram, on Facebook. And I will say, even though it is so hard to do that. And I remember the time I finally went public with my pictures. I'm a pretty private person. And when I did that, I actually cried when I put that up. Because I thought, this is not how I want the world to know me.
Right.
But these people are heroes because they're telling the story to make the change. And every person's story is one more stone that's building on this mountain of evidence that cannot be ignored anymore. So one of the things that blows my mind, we talk about it at SAN, is that last I checked, it was over 1 billion views of hashtag TSW on TikTok. Over 1 billion. That is so many people thinking about this and talking about it. Over 11 billion views on social media in general, which means on a patient level and a grassroots level, this is spreading like wildfire. And the thing is, that's concerning because we don't have all the medical support and the science. People are just trying to figure this out on their own.
For sure,
which isn't the best way to do things, but it's all we have had, because we have not been acknowledged and recognized, and really it hasn't been dealt with. In fact, that was something Dr. Ian Miles said. He's like, for an issue to be this big in social media and kind of just in the social sphere, there hasn't been 1 cent that has gone to it toward research at the NIH. Why is that? He's like, every other issue has like amount of research around it, but this does not. Why not? And I think part of the reason is because it is so controversial. And man, it's been a long road to try to get to where we are. In fact, these scientists that I'm talking to, they're saying, you've been working on this for 10 years, over 10 years. Why have we never heard about this?
Yes. Amazing.
And it's just because there's been disconnect.
Yeah.
And so it really has taken the patients, us, telling the story, raising the alarm to finally move it forward enough where, you know, there are doctors who are picking it up one by one. And God bless them for doing it, because they really are putting their neck out to do that, because there's so much pushback in their colleagues. They're kind of putting their career on the line in some respects. Even journals don't want to publish because it's so controversial. So it really has been this uphill battle for a long time.
Yeah.
But we're getting there.
That's amazing. The other thing that you had talked about, which I just think is so fascinating, is the code. Is that something that you're going to share? Because when you told me that, I'm like, whoa, that seems like a big deal as well in the medical community.
Yes. It is so important that we have a diagnostic code to be able to record, like for doctors to be able to report this. Because if you can't report, how can we track how many cases there actually are? How can we actually look at research around, okay, what were these people prescribed? What happened? What other conditions may have emerged as a result of using steroids, right? So it's so important for research, but it's also so important for us as patients to be able to get insurance coverage for things like that. I know I was bedridden over 1.5 years and housebound for 3 years. There was no way I could work or take care of my kids. I couldn't do any of that. And so if doctors aren't recognizing it and they're not able to report something, it's very hard to get disability or insurance coverage to be able to just manage life.
Exactly.
So many people have had to quit working. Their, academic careers are put on hold.
Right.
People lose their partners and their way to get support. So it's pivotal, that we have that way to be covered.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And I think it's another thing that says to the medical community, this is an actual condition.
100%.
It's not just something that our patients are making up.
Yes.
You can go and look at the code and there it is.
Yes.
So, and is that out yet or is that still in process?
It's still in process.
Okay, so
it was reviewed in the middle of March. We had a lot of our community weigh in with letters, which is incredible. I'm so glad. I'm hoping, there's no way for us to know how many people wrote in, but I will say when we first submitted a proposal last fall, we had over 60 letters come in a week's time.
Okay, wow.
So I fielded those. I put them in a Google folder. I gave them to the committee and told them, listen, there is a lot of interest. There's a lot of need and urgency around this. Please consider this for review. They did. We had to go before a review board. Dr. Peter Leo did that presentation for us, which was amazing. He did just a fantastic job. And then now we're waiting. We're waiting to hear if that proposal was accepted. So the ICD-10 is in the United States, which after a lot of digging and a lot of non-answers from all these different entities, we are going to have to submit to the World Health Organization to get an international code. I don't know when the U.S. would be integrated into the WHO's international coding system. That's kind of a little mysterious still, but at least if we get it accepted, and we should know in May or June, it would still take until October 2025 to get in the system. Okay. That's how long these things take. But it's happening. Wow. And like you said, Sarah, I have heard from so many people, my doctor told me this isn't a real thing because they couldn't find a code for it. Yeah, so having a code is going to legitimize that this is a real condition that needs addressing and help. Amazing. So that's another
huge.
big one.
And that's so close. And I mean, it may not feel close if you just come into TSW and you're just now understanding this is a condition you have. It doesn't feel close. But having walked with you for so long and know how long it takes for these things to come about, it is very close.
Yes.
Very close.
And even if,
so exciting.
Just like the study that's in preprint, if it's accepted, and it's put out there by the CDC that this is coming, we can point to that. Right. If doctors are saying, no, I don't agree that this is a real condition, there's all of these things that we can point to now. Which will lead me to the next thing I'm excited about.
Okay, tell us.
So we've been working on TSW resolutions on a state level, and Tammy Bellis got the first one passed in Florida last year, and then we just had another one by JP in the state of Maine. Has introduced a resolution, which is a piece of legislation basically acknowledging TSW, saying this is a real entity, this needs more research, and is declaring February 3 as TSW Awareness Day. So it moves a lot faster in the States, and I will say to the people in our community, it's not hard to do. We've made it very easy for you. We've written all the letters and everything. You just have to hit send to your state legislators. And then if they're interested, you meet with them, and then they will introduce it. They basically just have to file something. It is not hard to do. Wow. But when we get these pieces of recognition and these resolutions on a state level, that's going to make it a lot easier to get something done on a federal level. And I will say we just met with Representative Daniel Webster from Florida with a group of advocates from ITSAN saying, can we get you to introduce a resolution on a federal level, and also do something called an extension of remarks, where they go down on the House floor and they make a little speech about it. They basically talk about what we put into this resolution, why it's so important to acknowledge TSW, the research that we need, and then that is entered into congressional record. And that's one more piece that we can point to saying this is a real condition, you know, especially around these state resolutions are so important because a lot of parents are really afraid of CPS, Child Protective Services, who are being called in different cases where, you know, the kids are doing so bad, they're sent to the hospital and the doctor's there. This is their standard of care and their protocol is to use steroids. And the parents are saying, no, we're seeing this different, you know, condition emergence in our kid. We can't treat this way. The doctors feel, well, you're not treating, you're being negligent. We're going to take your kids away. And they call Child Protective Services, which is horrible. I have heard some crazy stories that one mom in particular, because her kid was failing to thrive, actually pooping out blood by this time, being on steroids and antibiotics for hundreds of days out of the year, hospitalized 12 times. She created a GoFundMe and got money to go to Boston Children's Hospital and got a real diagnosis, which that's terrible. We shouldn't be in a position where we have to do that. No. Right? No. We should be getting the care that we need. And so by having resolutions like this and the ICD-10 code, by getting science that's saying this is a real thing that's happening, well, now at least these doctors say, okay, well, I'm not going to get sued because, you know, I'm not, you know, going by the standard of care that I'm supposed to, because they're kind of on the line as well. It's like they have to treat or practice the way that they were taught. So we're kind of in this tough situation still, but because of this evidence coming out, it's going to make it easier and easier for people to get the care that they need.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, it's so exciting. And I think especially for people who are suffering with TSW, just to know it's a legitimate, it's scientifically seen now. Yes, there's something else going on besides eczema. And it's there, it's true. Yeah. And now people just have to figure out what that is and what to do about it. Right. But when you were just telling me these things, I was like, I just feel like, you know, it's like rising out on a mountain, and then like it's like mounting, and then the downhill of like, okay, it's all these things are in place, and now let's roll out whatever needs to happen, and the greater community can begin picking that up and 100% and shifting how this is treated, how this is understood, how all of it. Yes. So I'm super excited, and I just want to say, like, for all of you who are coming around the TSW community, I don't know you personally, but Kelly does, and I know Kathy does, and I'm just so proud of all of you guys for fighting so hard for your health and for the people you love. And I'm just so proud of you, and I can't wait to see, like, you guys are actually going to change the lives of millions of people going forward. If you do nothing, nothing will change. But you are doing something, and things are changing.
And it is crazy to think of it on that scale, because it's totally true. In the United States, over 31 million people have eczema. Wow. And when we ran that international survey in 2021, everybody had taken steroids of some sort, but over 90% were taking topical steroids. Okay. So if you think of that worldwide, I've heard numbers of 200, 300 million people with eczema. Okay. And this is the treatment that's cheap and it's fast and it's effective, but nobody has been like recognizing the cumulative effect of using steroids for a long time, which they never were approved for. And what blows my mind is that they were approved after a 3-week clinical trial back, 60, 70 years ago. Wow. And they're still on the market, and no one's really looking at what's happening. So it's kind of mind-boggling how we got to where we are, but this is where we are. Yeah. And it is crazy to think that we as a community can be a part of truly changing history. Yeah. By saying, this is what we see, we're willing to raise the voice, we're willing to share our ugly, horrible, scary pictures. That's right. And to show what's really happening here. That's amazing. That people will take notice and change things. Yeah. So amazing. It is amazing. And I remember hearing, cool. Like, it was 3 years TSW, I met with a lawyer because I was thinking back at the time, well, you know, the only way change comes is people feel it financially. And so I met with her and she said, well, you're past the statute of limitation. You know, you would have to file a lawsuit within a year. And also you used several different steroids, so that's not really going to work because you have to have one product. She said, but I could get you a meeting with the FDA, but it's probably going to take, you know, she started down this list of things that would have to be in place, like a nonprofit, which we had. We need a bunch of doctors on board. We need a ton of the community on board. We need evidence. And she just went down the list. And she said, it'll be probably around 10 years, but you could make change. And I walked away from that conversation saying, no thanks, no way. You know, TSW has stolen, it was like 24/7, every second minute of the day. All I'm thinking about is pain and skin, and no way. I don't want to be in this fight. I just want it to be over with. But then one by one, those things just started happening. And that's amazing. You know, it's amazing that we're getting there together. And it's not one person, it's all of us. It's everybody doing their piece and taking what they have in their hand and saying, I'm willing to do this because it really matters. Not just for me, but it matters for everybody. So that's amazing.
That's so good. That's
Yeah.
so good. Thank you for sharing, and thanks guys for letting us just come on and be like real, because this is so exciting and it's so hard at the same time.
Yes.
So I'm just proud of you all, and thank you for letting me have a little window on your journey.
You're welcome. And I have to say one more thing. We can't stop now. Sarah's actually getting on a plane in a couple minutes, so we do have to go. But I have to share about the patient registry that ITSAM is creating that's so close to launch.
Okay.
It's actually in test mode right now, so the board members are going through it and making sure it's good. This is going to capture our stories in a way that can actually be turned into data and be used by science.
Awesome.
So no one has ever really tracked what's happening in us, and we have to do it with something called IRB approval, which means the science community is going to look at it and say, this is legit, you guys did it ethically, you captured the right stuff.
Cool.
So Kathy and Michelle and Jolene have been working on this for years.
Oh my goodness.
With an organization. It just finally got all built out. It's in test mode, but we're going to put it out to our community. And this is a way for everybody to get involved in something that is going to super make a change, because we'll be able to track what's actually happening. We can look at people's histories. We can look at their steroid use, other things that have happened along the way that can really change science. So it is going to be critical to capture this. And it's a way that, it's going to take some time for people to do it, but it's an investment that, again, can change the lives of hundreds of millions of people moving forward.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So cool. Well, what I love about this is like a lot is happening, but there's things people can do, like really practical things.
100%.
Cool. Okay.
Yes.
Well,
so you could do an awareness resolution. Don't forget to keep an eye out for the patient registry. You can go on this preprint that Dr. Miles put out that will have the little look in the chat or the comment box and leave a comment and say, this is important. You have to do this.
Awesome.
Those are 3 things you can do.
That's so good.
Yeah. And Sarah, thank you for walking with me all these years. Thanks for loving me. Thanks for not giving up.
Yeah, it's my privilege.
Sarah cut my hair when my hair was all falling out and smelled horrible. She was in the hospital with me when I almost died from eczema herpeticum.
Yep.
And we cried a lot together and prayed a lot together, and we're still walking together. So
that's
awesome.
right. Yep. And it's hard, but it's a privilege, because I know like it matters.
It matters.
You matter. Everybody in this matters, and so
yes,
I'm just so honored to be your sister. Really.
Love you.
Love you too. Okay. See you guys.